Welcome back to the Brandon K Show. This is a real show. And we're in the middle of Brandon K every day in March. We got off to a slow start because I was having some issues posting my episodes. But the Brandon K Show is real. And we are sponsored by Giftiply Charity wrapping paper. And this is the start off of Dealing With Week, where I want to talk about dealing with different mental issues and addiction issues. And I'm here today with my guest, Brett.
Hey, everybody. How you doing?
With today being the topic of dealing with alcoholism and addiction. And Brett has his own podcast about alcoholism and addiction.
That's right. That's right. Yes, I do a podcast called the Super Sober Podcast right here at the podcast place in Long Beach, California. Um, I started that last year after I met Solomon. He definitely decimated the learning curve of starting your own podcast and editing and all that. We don't have to worry about it. We could just hang here and be bros and talk addiction or whatever subject, right? So I'm
Yeah.
glad you got me on here, Brandon. Glad you're here doing the show.
Do you have any other recovery podcasts, Solomon? Here at the
I have other podcasts that mention recovery, but not recovery specifically.
That's interesting. That's
Yeah.
very interesting. Yeah. Well, what made you want to start a recovery podcast?
Well, one of my previous guests on there, Anthony B, told me that I needed to get a platform for a Hollywood screen script that I wrote called The Detox. So I wanted to get a platform for that because I wrote that probably about 4 years ago. So I've been trying to get that into Hollywood. It's a story of addiction, the most deadliest disease that man has ever known.
Okay.
It's a Hollywood spec script for a streaming series. I wrote the first whole season. So he said, you need to get on some podcasts or do something. So I just started my own platform, started my own business of f3recovery.org, and then started the podcast. And then one of my coworkers and some other friends were wanting to talk recovery and started it up.
That's interesting. And you're like the most qualified person I know to talk about this. One of them. You got over 20 years of sobriety.
That's right. My sobriety date's 4/21/03. I'll be coming up on 20 years of sobriety in April.
But
Wow.
you
21
also,
years. 21 years.
But you also work in recovery, like as a major, like as a RN or
Yes,
what?
I am an RN with a BSN. I work in chemical dependency. I have
Yeah.
been, this is my 10th year of working in chemical dependency. I've been a nurse working in hospitals for almost 19 years now.
Yeah, and you said also like there's helping people with mental issues too.
Absolutely. I'm a psychiatric nurse. So I've worked everywhere in a hospital, but my specialty is psychiatric and chemical dependency.
And you get into some real cool stuff on the show. I've seen about, how to help not only with alcoholism, but, with different mental illness.
Absolutely.
Who was your guest on your last episode?
That was Dr. Alan Resch on episode 13. She was breaking down the central nervous system.
The central nervous system. That's the one to check out for sure. I mean, all of them are good. You started to get like actual experts in there now.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
No, well, we've always, the me and the co-hosts are experts.
Yeah.
So basically the other one, Rich J, is just got his RN and he's been working in treatment. And Jared is also a KDAC. He's a counselor in addiction treatment and also a paramedic. So it's always been a show full of professionals. I think almost basically every person on the show is a professional in their own right. I mean, of what they do for their profession or how they come at it. And definitely it's a teaching educational show. So
Yeah, in the first episode of my show, we talked about addiction and acceptance, and I brought out the Narcan, and I said, people are dying every day of this disease,
Right.
and, go get some of this Narcan. This fentanyl is going to kill you. But what kind of stuff are you seeing come through the hospital these days?
oh, it's it is so bad. I mean, never have we seen this evolution of the disease of addiction just crushing people. Um, I don't really know what it is, but over the last 5 years, we've seen younger people just ripped apart as if they've been drinking their whole life. I don't know if it's the way that they're distilling the alcohol or the new GMO hops or barley, or if it's some new synthetic process with it. But we got people that are coming in at 20 years old as if they've been drinking their whole, like, for 50 years.
Oh my
I
god.
don't know how much you know about this, but like it's also like alcohol has to evolve. Like, oh, let's get more strong alcohol and let's
Mhm.
get like more weird
Yeah.
mixes and like I don't know. I mean, I know people are into like I mean, Four Loco was a heavy one or 151 or like
Mhm.
I don't know which ones you were talking about, but like the more distilled one.
The White Claws and
Yeah,
those.
those seems like they would be mellower. I've been sober 7 years. I never had a White Claw, but those
Mhm.
seems
Yeah,
like
either have I. Yeah.
they're kind of like silent but deadly. Or what do you think?
I don't know.
It's just
It's
if you have
across the
20 of them,
board.
if you have 20 of them, it's you're
Yeah.
gonna have some trouble.
I really don't know. Man, I'm just talking about alcoholic cardiomyopathy, which is the heart problems that come from drinking.
Mhm.
I mean, people with just their hearts as if they're like 80 or 90 years old with ejection fractions in like the 30s. The normal ejection fraction from your left ventricle is 70%. We got 20-year-olds coming in with cirrhosis, hardcore pancreatitis, just esophageal varices, people in their 30s as if they were drinking for like 30 or 40 years. It is next level stuff going on.
Is that attached to also they're on drugs? Like the drugs could
I'm just talking about the straight alcohol,
yeah,
let alone the other drugs that are on top of it. I
yeah.
mean, the synthetic drugs that are going on out there and what's been happening is what we see in the hospital with the fentanyl. People are getting, they're going into DTs on day 3 and 4. They're getting so sick that we can't even take care of them on our floor. We have to send them to the ICUs
Let's
and
let's
all that.
describe to the audience what DTs are.
That's delirium tremens.
Delirium tremens. I mean, I feel like in my later years of drinking, I started to have hallucinations
Yeah.
and I started to withdraw from alcohol when I didn't have it and start to hallucinate when I didn't have it or when I did have it. But like, how do you describe DTs?
Yeah, the
This
body's
is just
just
from alcohol we're talking about.
so yeah, so the body is just so the body is so adaptive. The body is just extremely adaptive. So after a long period of drinking, the normal person would take the amount of what we drink on a normal daily basis and their alcohol level, which would be like over the 400s into the 500s, which is a comatose level. So
Hmm.
these people or like me or maybe you, we walking around in the high fours functioning, driving, doing what we do on a daily basis because the body's adapted to that amount. The body's always adapting.
But then
It's called homeostasis. That's the baseline. So people's new baseline comes in and then we'll take their blood alcohol level and we'll get their lab work and we'll get a whole picture of what they're doing. And then it's like this person's been drinking for 10 years, almost a gallon of alcohol a day.
right.
So when we take it away, it's called decompensation. So that's why we give you the drugs so we can bring you down slowly but surely. But it's too much for the body. It decompensates too much. It's too much without the drugs, and the body can't function. It takes time for the nervous system to reset.
So somebody could have DTs just like for decades, like whenever they
It depends. Everybody's different. It's hard to tell. So some people don't ever go into DTs. Some people they detox just fine, and
right.
we bring them down with a certain amount of benzodiazepines. Those are central nervous system depressants because alcohol is a central nervous system drug. It's a central nervous system depressant drug. Alcohol is a drug.
And I'm just trying to understand this for myself too, but like DTs happens when someone is actively in their alcoholism. You have DTs like
When you take the alcohol
from
away.
drinking, and
Yeah.
then when you take it away,
Yeah.
even for a short period, you're gonna start to have DTs.
Yes. Yes.
And then also when you finally cut off for the last time, you might have DTs for how long after you separate?
Everybody's different.
Right.
Everybody's different. We call it the decompensation.
I felt like it took a long time to flush it out of my system, like months or who knows. I was like my mind didn't feel right for a while,
Right.
or it's
Right.
like what do you like about alcoholism? When they talk about killing brain cells, like
Mhm.
is that true?
Well, all the brain cells in it's called neuroplasticity, so the brain is very regenerative. And one of the most regenerative organs in the body is the liver, thank God for all of us drinkers out there, right? Like, hey, but to a certain point, things start getting scarred and damaged. So the alcohol is a very corrosive component. It's a liquid that is so corrosive and damaging. I mean, we can see it. You can light it on fire. You can. What they would say. Father Martin is the greatest solvent on earth, right? It dissolves your stomach. It can dissolve you. It can dissolve the table. It can dissolve your marriages. It can dissolve anything,
Wow.
right?
I got just, but
Brandon, I have a question for
yeah,
you actually.
yeah,
You mentioned when you were coming down or going through that, and you said
yeah.
you weren't feeling yourself. What was that experience like going from being a functioning alcoholic to now being totally like sober and just not having any? Like,
Yeah, I hear
what was
you.
the worst part of that
Well,
for you?
I mean, it was summer 2016,
Hmm.
and I was drinking. I was going out to the bars, to the line dance bars, and drinking out there, and then drinking at home, and drinking where I was basically starting to drink every single day.
Mm.
So, but then when I would even take a day off, I started to notice these psychosis kind of
Mhm.
symptoms, and I even like told my friends like, "Did I get drugged last night?" Like I thought that something like serious was happening to me. And then even to the very last time I drank, um, I felt like in a psychosis hallucination, and then it was like
Yeah.
I had felt that before on drugs, but I had never felt that just from alcohol.
Right.
So that's when that was my bottom to go and try to
That's
get.
scary stuff, right?
And then in the morning, I woke up with the hangover, and I couldn't even like read the words on the wall.
Wow.
And I was in a yeah, it gets very intense. And when if I ever share about it, I say, um, you don't think that that can happen with just alcohol. You think that
Oh.
especially like I was 31. Is like I didn't think that was gonna escalate that quickly.
Happening younger and younger, man.
Hmm.
And I mean, that's your sobriety date, 7 years. So I mean, I'm saying I'm noticing this over the last 5 years, but maybe it is 5 to 7. But it's just been getting worse and worse to clarify on the question. But then with all the other synthetic drugs and what's going on with the fentanyl and all these drugs you can get from India across, you can order them on the internet, the benzos, we like to call them wham whams and zoom zooms.
I had a Xanax addiction as well. Like
So
so that was like this withdrawal I had from the alcohol felt like the same withdrawal I had from the benzos.
right,
And it's like
because it
it's
is, because the
dissociation.
benzo is a central nervous system depressant.
Hmm.
So we call that powdered alcohol.
Powdered
Mhm.
alcohol.
Yep.
Yeah.
Benzos. That's your Ativan, Xanax, Klonopin, Librium. So those are the medications we give you to get off of the alcohol.
Yes.
So they're both central nervous system depressants. So they wean you down. So if you have this amount of alcohol level,
Yeah.
then we want to detox you off it safely. That's what we do at my work.
So
So
you
we bring you down with the benzos. Sometimes we'll give you a Librium, which is a very common one for the audience that's listening. Someone's been like, "Oh, I went to the emergency room. They said they gave me a script for to go to AA. I obviously I had a drinking problem. They gave me a script for Librium."
mhm.
So they're like, "Oh, thanks, doctor. I'm going to go home and detox myself on Librium at home," which is usually never turns out well.
Oh, then they got like naltrexone.
Mhm. Well, naltrexone is a mat med. That's a medication assisted treatment drug.
What's that do?
Well, that's just to help you with cravings.
Oh, right, that's the one that helps you with cravings.
Mhm.
Antibusin,
Well, that anti-abuse is a whole different one. That'll make you throw up.
if you drink.
Yeah, if you drink.
So
That's a
these are
hardcore one.
It's
So
designed to make you throw up?
yeah, yep,
Like, to get the
absolutely.
alcohol out of your system?
It's designed to make you deathly ill, so you will not drink.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's called
Yeah.
anti-abuse.
Yeah.
It's not very used very much these days. So I mean, from
So
where we are, so naltrexone is one, and Camprol is another mat med.
what
Medicated assisted treatment medication. So Suboxone is a medicated assisted treatment medication also for fentanyl and opiates.
I heard they might like give that to people less because that also becomes addictive.
Suboxone?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a whole nother.
Yeah.
We're going down the rabbit
I'm
hole
just
here,
saying
Brandon.
what I'm
But
saying
yeah, so
if people know about some
Suboxone is a synthetic opiate
yeah.
that we give for them to get off of the opiates because the withdrawal from the opiates is so gnarly. It used to be methadone, but people still do the methadone. Methadone, this is such a controversial situation going on. So when I first started working in treatment, my first one, which was at a treatment center locally here, that's when Suboxone came out. They came out and marketed Suboxone as the good end all. Don't worry about the methadone. We were doing these complicated titrations, a certain amount of medications as we go through, and it won't be a continued medication. There
Right.
won't be a maintenance with Suboxone when it first came out.
Right.
And then sure enough, their intention was the whole time to be on maintenance.
Right.
But I mean, it's the lesser of the evil for sure, I guess. But people these days, I mean, because you have to do the double kick. is
Yeah.
what we call. So if you're coming
Wow.
off the
Yeah,
opiates,
double kick.
you have to come also off the Suboxone
Yeah.
in one pop. So people are just starting to kick it just straight old school these days because they're not wanting to do the Suboxone anymore. It's a lot. The evolution of what we're doing in treatment and how we're treating it through the hospital areas or the treatment centers, from what I've been doing it for the 10 years, but let alone the doctor I work with who's been doing it for a long time, one of the most prominent in the industry, and so many of the other people collaterally that do this. This is such a vast problem.
I just heard that they more recently they're like, now I'm not even going to give you the Suboxone because I don't want you to have to kick this next thing. I don't want to get you addicted to something different. I don't know how many doctors do that, but some are going
No,
to
the
say
the
they're not.
mostly
Yeah,
it's like, look, you need to stay on Suboxone because the chance for you to relapse is so high
yeah,
off of the fentanyl, the withdrawal and the sticking in the fat cells of it, the whole process, like what you were talking about, how long to get out of your system for
sure,
the alcohol. I
yeah,
mean, there's an old saying that was taught to me when I first got into recovery. For every year that you've been drinking, it'll take 1 month for you to quell the process
right.
and get back to a certain amount of normalcy, or what we would call in the medical field homeostasis. So I was drinking for 20 years. So for me to get to back to a certain kind of normal baseline, but I started drinking at 11. So
Mm.
I never even got to a normal baseline. I was just out there for a long time. So to get back to a certain level, like they'll say in recovery, is 2 years is the magic point.
Oh, yeah, and I wanted to go back to the brain cells thing. Is I've heard that
Mhm.
you do kill brain cells, but you have so many to spare that like
No, your brain cells regenerate. If it was
okay,
going to kill so many brain cells, I'd be like this right now on the podcast.
right, yeah,
Believe me, I
uh,
killed a lot of brain cells.
okay, and then as
So I
you
mean, but you would see the damage, but the body is so regenerative.
the body is regenerative,
Absolutely.
neuroplasticity.
That's right.
That means that
The neurons that
even
fire together wire together,
e-
that kind of stuff,
even
right?
if
You
you
were
had
even doing it
like
with
you were drinking 30 plus years, 40, 50 plus years, some people they can basically
Mhm.
heal their brain over time.
Oh, they'll I've been doing this a long time, right? I've been working in hospitals taking care of addiction. So no matter where you're working in the hospital, whether your assignment is depending where you are, it's just a ratio. If you're in the ICU, you have 2 to 1 because your patients are a lot sicker. So, but if you're on med surge, so that's going to be 5 to 1. If you're on telemetry, it's going to be 4 to 1. But no matter where you are in the hospital, you're going to have an alcoholic or an addict patient.
Mm. So
So,
then what you do is called detox
we're chemical dependency.
and like so they come in and they're like probably overdosed or are having a serious health problem.
No, they're coming in and wanting to detox.
Okay.
So, I mean, they
Even
come
if
in, they
yeah.
call and they come in and they're like, look, I need help.
Yeah. And then
Or they
you
don't want help, or they come in through the hospital through the emergency room,
yeah.
and then they get talked to by the doctors and the nurses and or the social worker, and they're saying, "Hey, do you want help?" Because obviously you. But most with this disease, which is so deadly about it, it's the only disease that tells you you don't have one.
Yeah, and there's certain places like I don't know, like the Rock Center where they would do
Absolutely,
a detox of just hey, you're not going to have anything,
yeah, shake and bake
a
stuff.
shake and bake, and then but you do a medical detox, so you're
Absolutely,
gonna give them something to help them
we
through the withdrawal
yeah,
symptoms.
you're not coming into our place and not taking medication. It's a medicated. It's a medical
And now once they
assisted treatment.
I don't know how long they stay in there, but once they go through that program, then what is the advice from the hospitals for what they should do
Well, we
next?
do a whole in recovery. So,
Mhm.
I mean, basically, first we got to get the drugs out of you. We give you drugs to get off the drugs.
Mhm.
That's that gnarly.
Mhm.
Mm.
So, I mean, the only two that you can die from when you're withdrawing are the benzos and the alcohol
I've heard that.
due to seizures.
My two favorites.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you were on a double downer. You
Yeah.
were like slam, slam, bam, bam.
Yeah.
So, some of the hardest detoxes we see are coming off the benzos. It is gnarly.
And just so I understand, Brett,
Mhm.
the facility, is it an actual hospital or
Yes,
is it a
we're in a
treatment center
hospital.
attached to a hospital?
We are in the hospital.
Okay, and then when patients come, they stay there
Yes,
for that whole
absolutely.
treatment time?
Mhm.
What's the
So
average time someone stays there? Is it or up
it
to
depends on which drug it is or how long or how much the decompensation is
Because then
happens.
there's gonna be aftercare, there's gonna be a sober living, there's gonna be
Mhm.
what
Yeah,
there's
I
a
can
whole
break down I
process.
can
Yeah.
break down the whole process.
Yeah,
So,
tell us.
of all the
Now's the time.
diseases that you come into a hospital, no other disease has the longevity and treatment and, let's say, focal point as addiction does. So, when you come into the hospital, you can go through detox, and how long that takes is how long it takes. Average detox for alcohol is 3 to 5 days. But, I
Wow.
mean, you could be there for 10 days. I mean, learning how to walk again. You decompensate so bad you can't even
Oh
walk.
my god,
So the
really?
DTs, I mean, I've seen people digging into the walls looking for their cat. I mean, just people absolutely losing their mind. So
Hallucinating.
bad, they are so sick. So on our unit, we don't do IV medications for that. We just do IM shots, which are shots and PO medications and pills.
Just
If
for
they get
safety, obviously, right?
no, it's just then it would be a medical unit then.
Oh,
So it
okay.
would just we need they just don't have that. So, as far as hospitals with addiction treatment in it or detoxes, there's not many. In Orange County, there's only a couple.
Okay.
But
So,
you were
they
gonna
even closed one of the major ones recently too.
you were gonna
So, but the average alcohol
yeah,
detox 3 to 5
3
days.
to 5 days.
Fentanyl and the opiates now, they can't even start Suboxone till day 3 to 5 now.
Mhm.
So, and then benzos can be just stretched out. So you go to your detox, and then we have a residential treatment, RTC. That's a
Resident.
30-day program in-house where you live there.
And then they're generally, like, learning life skills in there,
Yep.
and
They're
they call
giving
it
them some time.
programming,
Mhm.
and they're gonna be, like, taking classes, like, for, like, 4 to 5 hours a day.
Yep. All day.
And, I met a lot of people
Yeah.
who are in these what's it called?
Yep. Treatment centers.
Residential treatment centers, and, I don't know, um, what kind of recovery rate they have, but they're obviously
Mhm.
teaching people how to stay sober too.
Absolutely, giving them the coping skills. They use all the different treatment modalities. They have a psychiatrist at those places, and they'll look at the whole thing because of what they call dual diagnosis. You're coming in, you'll not only have the disease of addiction, but usually coupled with that, you have anxiety, depression, bipolar, borderline personalities, all these different blanketed mental health issues that come along with it. So you
Probably
get
what
to
started the alcoholism in the first place, right?
all types of just no coping skills ever taught to them, hereditary damage, flipping all just the whole entanglement of the process that they've been drugging usually is just it's a lot. But the
Mm.
whole treatment team is there. So you have the psychiatrist, we have nurse practitioners, registered nurses, counselors,
Physical
everything.
therapist too, probably?
Well, the physical therapists come in. Yes,
If
they
if they
do.
have to relearn how to
Oh,
walk, stuff like
all the
that.
time. Oh my gosh. We have them there on front wheel walkers, just working on it all day. They come down and sometimes they're just so sick and they don't come back quick enough. They might have to go to a skilled nursing facility. So
Mm,
everything gets placed.
Yeah.
So where I work, they do all of that. And then after the 30-day residential treatment program, they can go into outpatient. And that's where
Outpatient.
they go home and they can, sleep at night wherever it is
Yep.
or a sober living,
Yep.
hopefully a sober living.
Yeah.
And that goes into different phases where it's PHP. So that's 5 days a week.
Right.
And then you go into your sober living or you go home to your family and then you come and do treatment and learn more.
Yeah, it's like more programming, more
More
classes. I
accountability.
actually I went to what's it
Mhm.
called? IOP
Yeah,
because
that's
it was
good.
I had been sober a year, but I was having mental issues,
Good for
and
you.
and my therapist recommended IOP, and so I got to learn the skills there, and they taught me about how to coping skills.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
See, I mean, you can jump in at any phase of this. A lot of the people sometimes do their detox at home and then go to the residential treatment,
Yeah.
or the first time, and depending how many times you've done it, for the first time, a lot of them don't do residential treatment first. They'll go to IOP or PHP, depending on what
It's
some people, a lot of people got to work.
it's a mix of people at the IOP that I was at, but
Hmm.
they're not all just drug addicts. They could be people with different mental issues as
Yeah.
well. So IOP is just a place to kind of learn things.
Yep. That's intensive outpatient. And
Hmm.
PHP is partial hospitalization program.
Right.
So it tapers down, sort of just like how we taper you when you're coming off of the drugs and what we do in the detox. So the whole treatment program is there where I work, and so many different treatment programs out there. There's Orange County, where well, we're in LA County right now, but this whole area, Southern California, is the recovery hub of the world.
And then after residential or IOP, then you might end up in like a sober living.
Mhm.
Sober livings can be tricky because they're not always well regulated about
Right.
keeping drugs and alcohol out of them unless they're very strict.
Right, right. So, I lived in a sober living for 2 years, saved
Mm-hmm.
my life.
Mm.
So, I'm a part of this whole process. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I did drug court. I've done 90-day program. The last one I went to was one where I was able to really work on myself for 90 days. It was a low bottom indigent one called St. John of God in Victorville, changed my life. Moved from there, moved into, his house, sober living and treatment centers out there in Upland
Mm-hmm.
in the IE. Glenn S. is the owner of that, a good friend of mine still to this day, 21 years later.
Yeah. Wasn't he on
Um,
the show?
he was.
Yeah, I
Yeah, he
saw.
was on episode number 12.
Yep.
So, he's gonna be back. He's out there, he's doing it. It's, his house, New Creation, Sober Livings and Treatment Center. So, he offers all that in his. It's not in hospital.
Well, I'm gonna assume because you know the guy and everything that
Mhm.
when you were in sober living, you didn't have people kind of relapsing all the
Oh,
time.
absolutely. Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
it's tricky.
It's on and cracking.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's just a part of the nature of the beast. So, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, you name it, I've seen that. People overdosing and dead on the toilet, from heroin overdoses to people on top of the roofs, in a meth psychosis. Just all of that goes on. Of course, but I mean, if you, there's a lot of good sober living, a lot of good treatment centers out there,
Sure.
and people taking it serious. So,
And then like it can turn into a cycle where you would just end up in like treatment your whole life. But I mean,
yeah,
that's kind of where 12-step programs come in. Either you can
right.
just go off and try to do your own thing, or you can, get into a 12-step program where you try to
Yeah.
meet up every once in a while.
Yeah, where the real recovery is happening, where the people are staying accountable. What do you do after you've done your 90 days? If insurance pays for your full 90 days, which they do less and less depending on what insurance companies, and that's a whole nother can of worms. But so, I mean, where's your accountability to change? So you're done with your detox, your residential treatment. Life's good. I got these new coping skills. You go to PHP and IOP, and then all of a sudden, you don't have any accountability. So that's why they're plugging the 12-step programs, staying accountable so you can go and meet new friends and get new habits and new coping skills. Because
Yeah.
the best way to get rid of old habits is what? Getting new
Replace
habits.
them
Absolutely.
Yeah.
with a
Yeah.
couple new positive habits.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. And that's what, a lot of your show is doing. I mean, of what you do, you get out there and your real world stuff, you doing the burpee program,
Yeah.
you're just getting real with people and meeting them right there
Getting
at
real.
where they're at. And that's what we're doing on the podcast. So, I mean,
Yeah, no, I mean,
getting real with it.
it's there's so much positive stuff to do, and I mean, if you're a real addict like me, you're going to your mind's going to tell you like, oh, why would I do that? Why would I have a podcast? Why would I go exercise? Like, I just want to go get fucked up all day.
Yeah, of course.
So like, and then someone will tell you, go replace your negative habits with positive habits, and you just can't even imagine your life without the negative addictions.
Right. It's a tough one to get over. But I mean, there's a magic point at the 90 days.
90
There's
days.
the 90 days of true accountability.
Okay.
Your chances of sobriety go way up. That's why it's not just some hocus pocus or whatever. There's a science behind all of it. I mean, you're in a hospital where we're at. It's not just some like, oh, well, hopefully you do this. And all. This is a designed process.
Yeah.
I mean, AA has been kicking ass since 35. And
Right.
then there was other programs that would predated that.
Right.
And then NA came out, and then all these other 12 steps work on changing and making you accountable and coming together with a community and a group and like-minded people, especially with this disease, because this disease, man, this one is just next level stuff because it attacks mind, body, and spirit.
So when you got sober 20 plus years ago,
Mhm.
at what point did you say you wanted to work in recovery?
Oh, it wasn't about, well, after I got my RN, so I first started off as a licensed vocational nurse. So, the treatment center that I work at now, they only have RNs that work there. So as soon as I got my RN, then they said they would hire me, and I went there, and that's what they did.
Hmm.
So I could have worked in other treatment centers and stuff, but I was already working in a hospital as a float nurse.
Right. So,
Mhm.
but like you made the choice to become a nurse after you got sober, right?
That's right.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's really cool.
After 2 years of sobriety, I needed a career.
Mm.
So,
Did you try like little get well jobs and stuff,
yeah,
like
I was selling cars.
selling cars?
Yep, for a couple years. And then, I've done various other little jobs, but mostly my whole job, from 15 on was full addiction
Your job was
to
addiction?
32. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
30,
Helping others
32.
get
Hey,
loaded.
31, 32.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
that's
got sober at 32.
I got sober at 31.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So, yeah, there's something magic about for us dudes, that
Yeah.
my
20
nephew's
20s are
working
over.
on sobriety right now too. He just got out of a treatment center. Shout out to him, man. Love you, brother. And keep on keeping on with that.
I
And
guess
so many people doing it these days. People are really diving in and working on changing their lives, especially in my family and my wife's family.
yeah, there's something in my head because I tried to get sober at 23 just because it was so bad. But I think there's something in my head that was like, okay, 20s is kind of the time to party, and then when you're 30, you got to be an adult.
Yeah, there's some about it around that 30, 32 spot or 30 to 35 that us guys just calm down a little bit and then start taking things a little different. But yeah, my process of getting sober, it finally just clicked. So I had a spiritual awakening up in that treatment center. I knew I was going to stay sober the rest of my life.
Yeah.
Yes,
What was? Can you describe kind of what?
my spiritual
Yeah,
awakening.
yeah, yeah. Let's
So
hear about it.
yeah, I was up there and I accepted Jesus into my heart.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Okay.
Because they were getting people off the treatment center to go to a church because it was a non-denominational, and people were accepting Jesus into their heart. I did that. I said the prayer and everything, and I felt like I was 50 pounds lighter,
Mm.
like almost immediately.
Yeah. Well,
And I I was different. There's something happened. It finally clicked, and then I was like, I'm gonna do whatever it takes. I'm gonna do whatever it takes because I was on my last opportunity. I don't know what happened on that process when I did it, but everything's been completely different since then. It's not really been a struggle. I've been willing to put in the effort, and I've been a changed man.
I believe it. I
And
believe
I'm
it.
not like a holer roller or anything like that, or go to church or anything, but something happened, and then now I stay on that spiritual pathway.
What was your spiritual state even like a year before you came to Jesus? Like were you did you believe in Jesus already, or did
Nope,
you atheist or
no,
agnostic?
pretty much just believed in something out there, and but I didn't believe what it basically organized stuff.
Mm.
So yeah.
Did you have a
So
bad
I was like, no, I just never,
never looked
my
into it?
religious upbringing, coming up was if your grandmother asks if you believe in God, just tell her yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
Right, just to
So my
avoid questioning.
mentor, yeah. So that was it. So my parents weren't religious or didn't ever go to church. I went to church with some other friends of the family a couple times, but no, I was never had any kind of spiritual, or we're more like a teaching family, more cerebral, more science based. But it wasn't like don't go or don't believe in God. It was never like that. My parents let me make my own connections with whatever it was that I was going to do.
I'll share my story a little bit. Is that I
Cool.
when I was getting sober, trying to get sober, I was a total atheist. And yeah, it was just like I just was so desperate that I even avoided, getting help from therapists, from 12-step
Mhm.
programs, all those different years. But yeah, it was just really being desperate to so you find a higher power sometimes when you're at your lowest.
Yeah.
But even so, like um when the 12 steps, they're very inspired by Christianity.
Mhm.
So like I did have like an anti-religious thing in my head, but there's certain parts of 12-step programs that say like be quick to see where they're right, be quick to see where religious people are right, and don't be closed-minded to
Right.
to to listening to religious people and seeing the similarities and not the differences. Like these are
Right.
tools I've learned from 12-step programs.
Mhm.
And so it's interesting that like these 12-step programs were completely based out of, you mentioned the Oxford group earlier.
Mhm.
The Oxford group was literally like the six steps of
Right.
of the 12 steps.
Mhm.
But they were very much like accept Jesus into your heart.
Right. Mhm.
So,
God-based and stuff. So,
I could go deep with that about just like the principles that,
mhm.
that keep people sober. They have been around, since the Bible.
Of course, even before that.
Yeah.
I mean, they're spiritual axioms. That means they're the truth no matter what. Like 1 and 1 is 2.
Right.
So the spiritual axioms, that's what the program's built on. Spiritual axioms, the truth, like living to give.
Living to give,
So
service,
there's service of others and
service,
just so many powerful things that
charity.
are, yep.
These are all the same
We're a
words.
communal species. So, I mean,
Altruism. These are all the
but
same
I
words.
mean, to pull in addiction is separation and slavery. One word to describe addiction would be slavery. You're just a slave. You're doing something against your will. That's one of the main signs and symptoms is like, oh, I'm just going to stop. And then you can't stop. And you're doing
Yeah.
something against your slave.
Right.
And that's hardcore stuff right there.
Oh yeah.
The
No.
things that we do and the things that we see and then how sick people get is just so next level that there's got to be some divine intervention happening.
Right. No, because I can put that together that if if there was no higher power, no good in the world, like we would all just be addicted to drugs and wouldn't have anything good around us and we'd all be hurting each other. But my concept of a higher power is that we help each other and like
Yeah,
when I see people helping each other, that's when I connect to my higher power.
right. That's beautiful.
And that happens at church.
Yeah,
People come
it doesn't
together at
have to be
church to help each
12-step
other.
based. I mean, a lot of people, we're wired to help each other. We're not, there's certain chemicals that get released when we see people being helped and when we're helping other people and all that too. So that's the a whole different process of natural drugs that get released. So we can have those kind of feelings and stuff.
One of our other axioms would be acceptance.
Right.
Like,
Mhm.
what's your experience with
Well,
acceptance
when I read 417 paragraph 2, that liberated me,
of the
blew me
big book,
away.
the AA book?
Acceptance, that whole reading right there from
Acceptance was the
Dr.
answer
Paul.
to all our problems today.
Yes, that saved my life. So when I was even further liberated, I was 50 pounds less floating around. And then I decided because I hadn't given the program a chance. I said I was going to do it because you'll hear it. So give it a year. And if you don't like where your life is, work all 12 steps, give it the best you can, do everything that's suggested, and then see where your life is after a year. And if you don't like where it is, then we'll refund all your misery 110%.
What
You
did you
can
have
have
to
your
what
shitty
what
life
did
back.
you have to accept at that time? Resentment
I
or
was in fight against everything that my senses could fight.
controlling, trying to
Dude, I
control
just
every
hated
outcomes?
I hated authority, I hated the government, I hated the way that people treated other people, I hated the way that our laws and regs and regulations and rules. I'm an old school punker.
Mm,
So, I mean, you talk about religious upbringing, one of the first albums I ever bought was, Bad Religion, Back to the Known.
I love them.
And then, yeah, of course, right? That's the cross buster on there.
Hmm.
It's the cross with a big line through it. And Greg Graffin is one of my mentors. I mean, he's a true atheist. I mean, he's a singer of Bad Religion, but he's a double PhD. He's an incredibly smart man, well written, very compassionate. And it's you hear the band name Bad Religion, and you think it's all bad, but incredible stuff.
So you know a lot about him as well, because
Mhm.
like I don't know if you still study him and stuff, but they have a point with that about like there could be bad within the religions as well.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you don't have to have religion or anything like that to be a good person. That's one
Right.
of his main things. It's like
Yeah,
you
he's
can
got
be
a
an
song.
atheist and still have
He's got a song "Atheist Peace."
yeah,
It's one
uh-huh.
of my favorites.
Yeah,
But like he's like saying like we could all be just let's give away our religions and let's just live together in harmony. But
yeah.
but you know
I mean, most people think that if you don't have a religion or some kind of belief that you don't have a moral compass or can't be good.
right,
And that is just that's a lie.
right,
So, I mean, and things have evolved and for me, if it wasn't for the program, I would have never gotten to my higher power. I would
right.
have never gotten the spiritual aspect of things. For me, for my spiritual awakening, it all started off with God being good, orderly direction. They said, Brett, can you just at least take some good, orderly direction?
Mm.
And I was like, probably not.
Yeah, like what would that look like? What would that look like early on? What would good orderly direction? You got
Good, orderly
yeah,
direction was like
get
take
a,
the next indicated step,
go to a
go into
meeting,
sober living,
get the
go to
job.
sober living, be
Yeah,
around other people that are sober and on that pathway. Do what's suggested, work the 12 steps, get some new coping skills in your life.
Right.
and stay accountable. Do your meetings.
How about honesty? That's a major principle.
Practicing, yes.
Did you have trouble being honest in
Oh,
your early
I'm a
years?
natural liar.
Yeah.
I was stealing in 3rd grade, and it just came natural. I would lie about stuff just naturally. I still can quell that back.
Yeah.
Talking with my wife, I was like, first off, she asked something, and then sometimes I just gotta filter the first responses, and I was like, "Why
Yeah.
would you lie about that?" I was like, "Well,
Oh.
protect her psyche a little bit or
Oh.
something." And I'm like,
Oh, yeah.
"Oh, yeah, you just tell the truth."
Sure. Well, I mean, you
It's a
bring up a
practice
point.
skill, right?
You bring up a point where like maybe it's not always the right thing to be honest. Like, because you could hurt somebody if you're too honest.
Right.
So, I mean,
You
like,
can't handle the
uh,
truth.
do, do you
No.
I mean, do you think that there's a real balance there, or do you really think you should just be honest all the time?
Well, of course, there's a balance.
Yeah.
In a
You can
society
hold things
full of
back.
liars, I
Yeah.
mean, you're gonna be the only one telling the truth.
But
Depending, I mean, that's a whole vast subject right there too.
yeah.
I call it navigating the planet of personalities. So,
Okay.
of course, some people can't handle the truth. Some people you need to delicately talk with them, and then some people you can't even have this conversation with them
Because
because they aren't adaptable or have the open mind to have such a conversation
about the thing.
about whatever subject it may be.
Right. Well, yeah, I mean,
So I
that's
go into work and I work with an incredible amount of smart people and all that stuff. So certain people you can say certain things to, other people you can be candid and jovial, other people are tight and rigid. So I mean, that's what I call navigating the planet of personalities.
mm,
So each person I have my own relationship with and my own boundaries with, and then vice versa from them to me.
yeah. Well, that gets into integrity,
Mhm.
which is another major principle.
Right.
And that's like being your same self around different people, but you're saying navigating. So it's just interesting, like the true Brett has to remain intact, but then like you treat different people different ways, I would assume.
Of course.
Yeah, but you can't change who you are to fit who they are.
Well, yeah, I can.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do it. Uh-huh. I'm a registered nurse.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I have to adapt to whatever patient I'm taking care of.
Right.
Um, Doctors' tendencies and personalities, rigidity, in the process of policy and procedures, how things are done. Things have to be done in dotting the i's, crossing the t's, how to handle things, how to navigate within that and still get things done. It's quite the arduous process to get things done, and then in close quarters, and then having to deal with so many different situations. I
Yeah.
mean, it
Yeah.
just let alone having to get somebody to a healing point,
Yes.
and then the patients, each one's different too.
Right. Right.
So one I could be cool with, the other one I already know this guy. This guy's one of our core relapsers. He's coming in, and
Yeah.
I know how he's gonna be, but he gets better on day 3. So
Right.
we already know that. His first 3 days are gonna be gnarly. So, I mean,
Why do you think people relapse?
why do you think people relapse?
Yeah. Why do you think people relapse?
Because it's, hard to break addiction.
What is the spiritual solution?
The spiritual solutions outlined in the programs.
Okay, so like
So
it's just all of it, all the principles together.
I mean, yeah, there
So like
isn't one certain
all.
thing, so you gotta get what your best coping skills are. So
Hmm.
everybody's got their things that kinda jive with them.
Yeah.
And, but if you less you practice them and do it, then none of them are gonna be solution or anything that's gonna get you to break that habit. So hopefully you can get off the juice long enough through going through a residential or whatever to get to a point to where you feel or you've uploaded new coping skills or it's been long enough that this could be a viable new way of life for you.
Right. Recovery is gonna look different for every person. So like
But
there.
the process of how you're getting into that different
Yeah.
remains the same.
And like.
They call that terminal uniqueness for a
Right.
lot of them. It's like, well,
Yeah.
if you had my background and my issues, and it's
Yeah.
like we all breathe air and drink water and put our legs, pants on one leg at
Yeah.
a time. Look for the similarities.
Not the differences, but I was gonna just say like, um, what was I saying? No. Oh, like you were saying, like you're gonna find different things that help you. Like so, you're gonna to relate to certain things that you hear in recovery,
Mhm.
whether at the hospital, at the IOP, at the 12-step meetings, you're gonna
Mhm.
hear something that really helps you and keeps you sober, and, like,
Yeah,
maybe you're gonna find Jesus, maybe you're gonna relate to service, maybe you're going to, relate to acceptance. You're gonna find certain things that help you more than other things,
absolutely.
but, so it is kinda different for everybody, but, it's a really a powerhouse, this recovery, because it's
Yeah,
all of us coming together and sharing our wisdom and knowledge as, like, a group conscience to, like, share to
absolutely.
help. Because then when you have a million people, somebody has been through what you've been through, and they can talk to you directly about, "Here is how I got out of this situation."
Yeah, exactly. There's nothing unique about any addict that's coming in that we don't have 10 solutions for. We're a solution-based program.
Solution-based
Oh
program.
yeah, you can tell us about your problems, but I mean, in anything in the hospital when they come in, it's we got a solution for all your ailments and a lot of different things. And then if you need to take a deeper dive than what's needed to be in the hospital, then they also have that too. So I mean, the hospital's not going to teach you how to meditate and pray.
Right.
It's not going to teach you how to use your nervous system better and all that. But there are many other different healing and treatment modalities, and the program will be the first one to say, hey, we don't have a monopoly on recovery. You need extra help? There's plenty of extra help. Go
Sure.
get it. Don't be afraid.
It's interesting that, yeah, these the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous was written in 1937,
Mhm.
and they bring up meditation. Like, how much meditation was, like,
I
in the
think it was
public
in
eye
39,
at that time? Oh,
1939. I
right, right,
think they were, yeah.
right, right, right.
But so what was you saying about
I was saying, when yeah, so 39. So the meditation, like, do you think meditation was like people knew about meditation back then in
absolutely.
America? Like,
Absolutely.
from because like it wasn't as prominent though, right?
Well, I mean, they've known about meditation for a long time. I
Right.
mean, since the beginning of time, basically.
Yeah.
Since I don't know when they first started doing it, but it's in a lot of different cultures and religions and all that stuff. It's a basis practice, especially in
Sure. Well,
India
I know
and
it's
Eastern
yeah.
cultures
I
and
know it's been
everything.
around there for
So I
thousands of
mean,
years, but in America, I thought it was probably less.
less prominent, yeah,
Yeah.
but they
Yeah.
know the healing treatment. So I mean, the founders of our program, William James and Carl Jung, and
Right.
William James is the father of psychology.
Right.
And, Carl Jung, one of the greatest, thinkers, and a lot of them that came together through this spiritual divine process to take the pitfalls and the pros and cons of the Oxford group and the Washingtonians to not fall upon its own weight, and then create the AA, and then NA to come in after that, and then OA, and whatever. 12 steps remain the same across the board.
Yeah.
So,
Why
I
do you
mean, to
think? Why do
throw
you?
in the meditation part, we gotta get quiet.
Why do you think it is that the 12 steps can, like, help with overeating and basically codependence, and why do you think that these same 12 steps help every addiction?
Because they're spiritual based in nature and give you the coping skills of why you would be doing something destructive
Right,
in the
anything
first place.
destructive.
Because most people, if you ask most people what their greatest coping skill is, most people don't have any coping skills or something that they go to.
Mhm.
That's why it's so powerful to come into 12-step programs, because look at the coping skills you're getting.
Bunch.
A ton.
Bunch.
We just cranked out a whole bunch of them.
Oh, yeah.
So I mean, if you can start adding a coping skill into a reoccurring event into your life, then
Well,
you're
we
gonna see the change happen, and then you'll be able to use that new coping skill. And a lot of what the program would say, most of it is can be summed up in 3 words, is, in 2 words, is let go.
let
Let it
go?
go. Yeah.
Let go of bad relationships?
You just let it go.
Yeah.
Let
Accept?
go of all the
Accept.
negativity that you've been practicing for your life.
Yeah. I, what was I gonna say? Oh, yeah, we didn't even get into what the 12 steps are, and, we didn't even hit on
It's so
amends.
vast.
Yeah, I know. There's, like, we didn't even touch
I
on
mean, I
all
do
the
that on my
things.
podcast. We
Yeah.
do the first 10 episodes was all basic stuff, and then the first, episodes coming in through 6 through 10 are all the 12 steps. But it's so vast. They're vast topics. You can't just crank through the 12 steps
Yeah.
in an hour, let alone
Yep.
people have been practicing it their whole life.
Sure.
I mean,
Sure.
people in the program forever. I've been practicing it for 21 years now.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and the steps mean so much more to me now than it did when I first got into the program. So true spiritual readings will change as you change.
So I got three final questions.
Let's go.
One, let me try to remember them. One was what helped you the most kind of early on to get sober?
Mhm.
What go ahead and answer it,
Okay.
like a
What
tool
helped me
or yeah.
most was staying accountable to the change at the time. The sober living,
Mm,
the treatment center, the 90-day program,
accountability would
and
be
just trusting the process.
accountability.
Yep. But staying in that sober living for 2 years. I
Yeah.
had a safe place to go every day.
Did you struggle with thinking about alcohol and
Oh, yeah, I still
drugs?
think about drinking.
Yeah,
Come on.
sure.
Oh, yeah.
But
My little demons be talking to me.
but
Hey, bro. Hey, what's up, dude?
that's a
Let's
good
go
time.
light your life on fire. Come on. Nah, not today, bro. Let me get out my spiritual, fire extinguisher here.
So you mentioned accountability. The next one would be what would you tell the people out here in the audience if they're struggling with alcohol or addiction? What would be the best advice you could tell them?
That we're out there and we're staying sober one day at a time.
Wow.
Both of us.
Mm.
It's happening. And if I can do it, you can do it. And I know so many people out there doing it.
Miracles.
Oh, yeah.
Literally
Unbelievable. If
miracles.
I could stay sober, if you knew me and my addiction,
Hey, I want to add something here
yeah.
because having experienced both of you guys in the different settings, there's this, to the average person, there's this perception of someone who's a recovering alcoholic as someone who's down on his luck, who just looks like they're always, just one step away from the curb, especially in LA and around this
Oh,
area.
God, yeah.
And both of
Oh, I'm
you,
driving in.
as well as Jared and Rich,
Mhm.
have been such like cool examples of showing that it's not a death sentence, that you can lead a normal life, that you can
Mhm.
still have support and still be out there and push things forward in whatever you do. And you guys are such
Amen.
great representations of that. So that's something that I've really been amazed by,
Mhm.
and I'm happy to see. And that's why I'm really glad to be part of helping both of you sort of push these messages out there.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
man. I
yeah.
appreciate that.
We appreciate you being a part of it, Solomon. I mean,
I
without you doing this and then interjecting with the great questions and giving us the platform, I'm super awesome that Brandon, we talked about it. And
yeah.
then I was like, you got to check this place out. And then bam, here we are.
Exactly. It's I manifested it,
Yeah, that's right.
made it real. But I was gonna say to answer Solomon, like the difference really is like what we're talking about in these solutions, like the higher power and these 12 steps, because you could be a very miserable person. I gave up my alcohol and that was all I had and all I loved. You know what I mean?
That's the worst.
Yeah, I didn't want to be that person, so that's why I'm
Mhm.
in the solution. I'm in this solution of being in the positive, finding other positive people,
Yeah.
and I'm not gonna. I made a promise to myself, like I'm not gonna be miserable. I'm not gonna get
Mm,
sober to be miserable.
no, that one sucks. They're not like being a dry drunk. Oh my God.
Yeah, there's
So if
a
you don't add up the new coping skills and you keep on applying your old coping skills to your new life, it will fail. Period. So it's a rush to get the new coping skills so you can apply it to your new life. So I mean, it's kind of that simple.
it's yeah simple but not easy, but like
Woo!
they,
It's going to
but
take some work, but people are lazy and all that, and
because
they don't want to put in the work. But the truth is that once us addicts and alcoholics get some momentum, we get some momentum.
oh absolutely
We
no.
start flipping the script and it starts going.
Yeah, no, but it's because alcohol was my solution to every problem. So it's
Mhm.
like I didn't know
Wow,
how
what a
to
go-to,
get
huh?
on. I didn't. You can talk to girls. You can get up on stage. You can go and think that you're playing music, but like you could just feel like you feel like a different person. But then to actually be sober and do it without that band-aid is a whole other game.
It takes time.
Takes a
Takes time.
long time.
Yeah, well, it doesn't have to take a long time,
I've
but
seen it happen real fast for other people. It took
uh
me a long time.
no, but I mean, it's something we work on. So I mean,
Hmm.
everybody's journey is the journey. So I mean, 7 years. Yeah.
7 years.
Man, I things didn't start rocketing for me until like year 15.
Oh, that's good.
So
That's good
I was
news.
busting my ass for all those years. So and then it's an honor to do it. I mean, working on my own life. I mean, I'm worth all my own efforts, all that good stuff, and we all are.
But yeah, and I I have this advice told to me, which is focus on the positive and the negative will disappear.
That's right.
So, all this I do is positive. And on that note, what are a few of your favorite sober songs.
Oh man, we went
Songs
over
that remind you of sobriety.
And
Well, I
where's your
mean,
guitar? You're supposed to sing them now.
oh my God, I've been jamming lately. Yeah, I told you before, that's been a while from Stained.
That's an interesting one. I never thought of that as a sobriety
It
song,
is a
but
song, a
he is
sobriety
saying like
song.
it's been a while.
Uh-huh.
Can we pull the lyrics up on that song?
Yeah, let's see. Let's see if I can
Been a
find
while
it.
from Stained.
It's been
That's
a
the
while.
band
It's been a
Stained. So that's
while
like
since I
a
could
sober mantra song, actually. So I mean, it really breaks down the
since I could
whole.
say that I wasn't addicted.
Yeah,
There's the line
yeah,
right there.
yeah. So I mean, he really breaks it down in that one. That's a really good one. He does a couple other sobriety songs also. So, but different. There's a whole bunch of addiction songs. So I mean, it's right here, and it's been a while since I could hold my head up high. It's been a while since I first saw you, and it's been a while since I could stand on my own 2 feet again, and it's been a while since I could call you. And everything I can't remember, as fucked up as it all may seem, the consequences that are rendered, I've stretched myself beyond my means. So I mean, I could read the whole thing out,
Since
but
I can say I love myself, that's something I gotta
right.
cover that topic someday. Self love.
Self-love is
I mean,
amazing.
right there. He's not when you're deep in your addiction, you're hating yourself,
You're
and you're
just vibing low.
Now, do we know if he was actually a recovering alcoholic or was this just a song?
We were talking about it. No, I think he's in recovery or was at one point. I don't know, but there's few different songs that they sing that are recovery based, self help based.
Mm.
This one's a really good song though. It's a great one.
All right, so you got to pick two more.
I don't know if I know two more
How about
ones that
Tool
are.
sober?
That's a good one. Yeah,
Can we
I
pull up
don't
the
really think of
lyrics?
that one as sober song
Can
from
we pull
Tool,
up the
but
lyrics on that one?
that one's a good one too, right? Okay. I just know I have a lot of addiction songs that I still like and listen to and stuff too.
Mm.
So, I mean, like drinking and driving from Black Flag, I still crank that one and drive, but that one's like kind of anti-drinking and driving. So,
Yeah, and then the artist who made this song made an
oh,
album, The 13th Step, which was
oh,
a whole
really?
album, and he kind of mentioned a couple things about recovery in there.
Okay. Yeah,
That was
Maynard, right?
that was with
Singer.
Perfect Circle, his other
Okay,
band.
yeah.
Yeah, but you can go deep with. I mean, the main line there is, "Why can't we not be sober? I just want to start this over." That's one I think about. But
Oh, there it is. Yeah.
And
Why
why
can't we
can't
drink
we
forever?
drink forever? I just want to start this over. Then it gets into the really defamating stuff. I am just a worthless liar. I am just an imbecile. I will only complicate you. Trust in me and fall as well.
yeah,
I will find a center in you and I will chew it up and leave.
Wow.
I will work to elevate you just enough to bring you down.
Mm.
That was a really good one. I love I mean, who doesn't like Tool if you're into rock? I mean, I love the guitar work and the bass lines and the voice and all that stuff too.
Maynard. I think he has like he lives on like a vineyard, and he like drink like he sells wine and stuff. But
Mm.
he's doing something
Hmm.
within recovery. I don't know what.
Oh, okay. I mean, just because you use or drink doesn't mean that you can't be supportive of recovery if you're
Yeah,
not an active addict or an alcoholic.
yeah,
I mean, lots of people support people that, I mean, people like to help people that help themselves. People like to help people. I mean, people like to be the hero in people's stories too. And, you know, the 12-step program can give you an opportunity to be really helpful to people. I mean, I like being helpful to people. I mean, the program and God made me a registered nurse. I would have never became a nurse if I didn't go into the sober living or if it wasn't for the program. I mean, when I got my nursing license and stuff, they were more interested in who my sponsor was, what my rehabilitation was, how long I had been sober, and all of that. And if it wasn't for that, I would have never been able to become one.
right,
So, I mean,
right.
it's recovery has been the best thing that's ever happened to me.
Well, that's good advice, and that's a good note. You've been a major inspiration to me, Brett. I hope that we said something here today that can help someone turn their life around. That's what it's all about, is getting out of the dark place, trying to get into recovery. But you could also check out Brett C on the Super Sober podcast.
That's right.
Super awesome.
Yeah, we're on all platforms. Check it out.
You're an inspiration.
Thanks, brother. So are you.
I wouldn't be here at this studio without you.
Oh, amen, man.
And we want to thank Solomon also.
course.
Thank
No
you
problem.
for all the great questions today. This was a really good discussion, and this is going to be dealing with week, and I'm going to talk about dealing with anxiety, dealing with
Mm.
identity, dealing with
Ooh.
grief. We got.
You can crank down the whole alphabet with all that
I
stuff.
thought of some good ones.
Yeah.
Dealing with suicidal thoughts. I'm trying to
Ooh.
get someone in on the StreamYard to talk to me about suicidal thoughts.
Oh, yeah.
So there's so much to talk about with mental health, but this is a great start. And go like and subscribe if you heard something good
That's
here.
right.
Go check out the Super Sober podcast and have a nice day.